From the Far East to Western Europe, from Siberia to Hindustan, many centuries ago the nomadic civilization stretched for tens of thousands of kilometers. Today the descendants of ancient nomadic tribes have become independent nations, yet they have preserved their nomadic survival culture. In what form nomadic traditions are still alive at present? Watch the Ethnosport to learn all about that and much more. How do you beat a Batir? Secrets of upbringing from the nomads. Ethnic Center, a revived history.
Мир вашему дому, дорогие друзья.
Imagine a battlefield where there is an army on one side and troops on the other side. And in the middle of the field, there are two Batirs with weapons ready to enter into a deadly fight, the outcome of which determines the victory of one of the parties. National game of Audaryspack is a battle between not the armed Batirs, but between the two Jigits on horses, and behind their backs, instead of armies, there are fans. That is why they fight with the same persistence that their ancestors had fought on a battlefield. In Audaryspack, players try to wrestle each other off the saddle, down to the ground. It's a perfect teamwork between the rider and the horse that requires complete understanding of each other and being receptive to each other's movements. Audaryspack in Kazakh literally means overturning and implies knocking an opponent out of his saddle. I warmed up a bit before the fight. In general, to ensure that the chances of players in Audaryspack are equal, they are divided into weight categories. A lightweight category is up to 60 kilograms. A middleweight is between 60 and 70 kilograms. 80 kilograms and up is considered a heavyweight category. My weight is 70 kilograms, so I'm middleweight. My opponent is about the same weight. Well, good luck to us all. By the way, the fight lasts 5 minutes. I need to remain on a saddle for that long. Let's go. Do you remember these centaurs? These strange creatures in Greek myths with an immense torso and a horse's body. When I first saw the Jigits on horses playing Audaryspack, that is the immediate image that came to my mind. These Jigits are real Batirs. They are powerful, strong, dexterous. They are so skillful that they look like they've merged with their horses. Now I have a chance to try my hand at Audaryspack. Okay, great technique. I'm taking my first class. Everything happens in the blink of an eye. I do not even have time to think about how something is happening and I'm already on the ground. It gets more and more interesting. I'm not going to give up, for sure. I can defend myself with a horse from his attacks. But now I have a chance to throw him off. But he holds to his saddle so firmly. Friendly Arman does not have a single chance to win. In order to be good in Audaryspack, one requires at least a year of training, a fine level of athleticism and significant aptitude to this type of sport. Nevertheless, Arman is doing quite well for a newcomer. No, I will not fall. Okay, so I held on to my saddle for the required 5 minutes with the help of my opponent, of course. It's an exciting game. You know, I want to continue, although I'm terribly tired. I cannot throw him off his horse. This is an impossible task for me. Thank you. The nomads used to say, a good horse can save an unskilled Jibek. In Audaryspack, the outcome of the fight depends largely on a horse. In the past and even now, the right choice of the horse for Audaryspack is of paramount importance. We train horses specially for Audaryspack. They should have a powerful back. When a rider pulls the bridle, the horses mustn't bite each other. Similarly, a horse must have a powerful torso and strong legs. It must be tall. Short horses are not suitable for Audaryspack. Tell us about the basic rules and the basic techniques that fighters use. Jigits with strong spirit and strong forearms participate in Audaryspack. He must be able to control the horse. You can also use the technique of Kazakh wrestling. The players must have strong back and thumbs muscles. During the fight, they often shift their balance center. Maintaining balance in Audaryspack is extremely difficult. That's why a healthy, trained back is required. When a Jibek grabs an opponent by his belt, he leans against the stirrup, begins to pull the opponent over. And then the outcome of the fight depends directly on the strength of his forearm. If a Jibek can throw an opponent out of the saddle with a belt grip, then this is considered a pure victory. If the Jibek was able to throw the opponent off the saddle with a leg grip, that's considered pure victory too. The player's legs must be strong. If the leg muscles are strong enough, the rider does not lose control over the horse, dragging her along during the fight. If during the battle one of the fighters rises above the saddle and then his opponent gets 1 point, a pure victory is when an opponent is knocked out of the saddle. Each of the athletes seeks to sneak an opponent onto the ground, or at least make him touch the ground with any part of his body. The most honorable victory is when one of the athletes pulls his opponent towards his own saddle. This kind of honorable victory is called Atan Aldaru. Now I will have the opportunity to watch the fight of the real professionals. If I do not understand something, the coach will explain to me. Now pull the belt. Pull the belt. Pick it up. Move the horse's head. Do you see how he rests his foot on the horse's head? Notice how he holds his foot. He must pull the opponent. Pull. Well done. The saddle of the riders must be well fitted so that the wrestler can easily remain on it. The players have special shoes. The height of the heel on the boots should be at least 5 to 6 centimeters. A high heel rests against the stirrups and helps the rider to find a fulcrum. Pull him to the horse. Wally can, let go a little. Carefully, slowly let go. Come down. Pull, pull. Do you see the Jibek with a red belt? It was a clean victory for him. In the past, wrestlers and riders of Audaryspack represented the entire communities, tribes or villages in the game. Today, competitions in this sport are held at the international level. The tournaments are attended by athletes from Hungary, Russia, China, Mongolia, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. Kazakh Audaryspack athletes are leading and have been leading among the sportsmen from other countries for many years. Our players have no rivals just yet. Nomads held their heroes high at all times. The people of Kazakhstan still cherish the memory of the Batiars who defended the homeland in the past. Stories of their deeds found place on the pages of history books. We name our streets with their names.
У меня в руках сигнальный образец книги.
I have a copy of Ahmet Toktabay's book. Soon it will be available in bookstores. In the book, the author talks about how the Kazakhs raise their sons. Ahmet is with me today. Tell us about the special upbringing.
Расскажите об этом.
Kazakhs raise their sons as Batiars from the early years. The parents taught the young boys to ride horses from young age. Turkic and Mongolian epics are full of stories of how young boys were presented horses. Before presenting, the family and friends discussed which horse was best for their son. They consulted with horse breeders and connoisseurs. The horse was supposed to be the perfect match for its rider, because the animal would play a great role in the life of a young man. Our ancestors dreamed of their sons growing up as glorious Batiars. That is why children were accustomed to a saddle from their earliest years. Young kids could barely speak, but they would already feel comfortable on a saddle. Batyr in the Kazakh language means a warrior, a hero. The stories about the brave Batyrs who had fought to defend the Kazakh land were passed from one generation to another. People were proud of their heroes. The young boys wanted to follow in their footsteps. We are in the ethnic center in Almaty region. Here you can feel the spirit of history that goes centuries back to the Saka period. Here we will learn how our distant ancestors raised their sons. This is a Saka mound dating back to around the 7th century BC. People used to ascend on top of the mound as a tribute to the fallen soldier buried here. The mound is not just a burial, it's a kind of temple. Various rituals, festivities and other events were held here. Location of the mound over a large plain is not accidental. This is the main mound of a large burial ground. A noble warrior could bring his young son here and could show him the expanses of the homeland that need to be protected. This was a place for a patriotic education. So from a very early age, boys were brought with a sense of responsibility for their homeland. The Ethnic Center is an interactive museum in the open air. Every exhibit here corresponds exactly with its ancient prototype. Leading experts, including archaeologists, historians, ethnographers, came together to create this place. As a result, the visitors now have the opportunity not only to learn about the history of the nomads, but also to experience it.
Дорогие друзья,
Dear friends, now you will watch a fight for a show. Stanislav will show me how the ancient Sakas fought with swords. This is an akinak. This is a sword. All the weapons are completely authentic, starting from design and shape, ending in size and weight. Therefore, I'm now armed just like an ancient Saka warrior. What is the difference between an akinak and a sword? A sword cuts smoothly, it chops smoothly. It goes through as a straight line. Akinak isn't always used like that, but you can use it as a saber. That is the main difference. A blow can reverse like this and be very powerful. The heavy handle goes back, the blade goes forward. In a battle, an akinak can be used simply instead of a shield. One blow, two, 1, 2. It can be used as the main weapon too. I will attack with it now. Just like this. Like this. Like this. And then I can use the sword. Thank you for this short tutorial. With the efforts of the experts, images from the military past of the nomads come to life here. Now we can see the military equipment of the eras of the Saka, Wosun, Kongju, Turkic and Kazakh Khaganates. Personally, I'm wearing the armor of a Kazakh warrior of the 17th century. These are the great steppe civilizations. They impacted the creation of our Kazakh Khanate. Therefore, in our center, I would like the visitors to not just see the exhibits as in a museum, but they could touch them and take them in their hands, to really feel them, to really experience the history of Kazakhstan, the history of the nomadic civilizations. Professional fights that prevented massive military clashes appeared in the 18th, 16th century BC, in the Bronze Age. Warriors participating in such fights could determine the outcome of a conflict between entire armies and prevent further military action. Later in the Saka era, this element of martial art was no longer widely used. Starting from the 3rd century BC, the institution of professional military fights was revived, and during the period of the Turkic Wars, it flourished. The Institute of Barters allowed to save a great number of lives. In the days of the Kazakh-Jungarian Wars, there was a rule. The army whose Barter wins during the fight gets the right to attack the rivals first, who in turn were obliged to defend themselves without running away from their positions. Of course, the army of a Barter who won the fight received an absolute advantage, because the outcome of the battle directly depended on the momentum that the cavalry of the attacking party gained. The participants in these staged battles are young athletes who play the kokpa and Audaryspack in their spare time. Their team leader is convinced that a good horse rider can be taught the basics of military affairs. Any equestrian game has always been training and preparation for war. Every game has its own features. In this case, we are talking about fighting, the ability to sit on a horse and throw your opponent off the saddle. What is necessary in combat? Elements of wrestling and excellent equestrianism. These skills were essential. For our ancestors, training in Audaryspack began from an early childhood. Boys learned to fight while riding young foals, sheep and young bulls. For adult Jigits, the main method of training was taking part in numerous competitions and fights. The modern athletes now train for their own pleasure at every opportunity. These guys have been training special military training for a few months. A year or two of grueling training and you are full-fledged Batyr. Without professional training, you can lose many years learning the skills of the nomads in equestrian games.
Что наша жизнь?
The nomadic lifestyle of our ancestors was tough and full of challenges and hardships. Even then, the communities brought up their sons to be fearless of an external threat. The Kazakhs have always been famous for the love of freedom and love of their homeland. They stood up and fought for these.
Казахи всегда славились свободолюбием. И за свою свободу мы всегда готовы постоять.
What do nomads do? Audaryspack.